The race to dominate the billion-dollar container business in Africa has not been in Kenya's favor in recent years. Djibouti has been winning the race since its multi-purpose port became operational in 2017. The 18 meters deep transshipment hub now handles bigger vessels than what Kenya's Mombasa port can. It was recently ranked by the World Bank as Africa's top container port, a coveted sport Kenya really admires. But to reach there now, a lot has to happen.
Bandari yetu ya Lamu kutoka leo saa 10 kamili iko wazi kwa biashara.
Of the coast of Lamu, there is a new structure so immense it can be seen from space. Over 240 kilometers from the port city of Mombasa lie Kenya's new port, Lamu Port. It's what Kenya wants to build as a top logistic center on the continent of Africa. Its largest handling capacity will be 23.9 million tons of freight upon completion. Thousands of people will be employed to ensure the port runs smoothly. Over 100,000 ships will be arriving here every year.
Na tunakaribisha wawekezaji, tunakaribisha wenye meli, tunakaribisha wafanyabiashara kutoka kila sehemu ya dunia waje watumie hili bandari.
And their goods will only reach their final destination on time if enough men and women will be employed at the port. From maritime pilots and terminal operators to coast guards. "12 noon, MV Cap Camel ship starts to approach the terminal at the new Lamu port along the Kenyan coast. It's carrying slightly over 100 containers. From now on, the clock is ticking. If the pilot fails to bring the freight to the correct terminal on time, the entire schedule will be affected. Unloading will take time, and the next ship will wait longer. It's a chain reaction with real consequences, given that Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta is waiting to launch the new port. If the ship comes late, the presidential schedule is thrown into disarray. It's a new port, and so this ship has no bigger challenges to battle with as it navigates into the terminal. The master plan for the sophisticated coordination of port endeavors is here. The port headquarters, the hub's brain. The terminal stipulates where the pilots moor the ship so as to optimize the use of the cranes. For the Cape Camel ship, it means making a 90-degree turn and pushing towards the dock. To make this possible, the ship needs the help of tugboats. It's difficult for the large ship to move sideways. Moving at low speed means this vessel doesn't have enough water passing over the rudder to turn quickly. So this assistance is needed. Two tugboats are cruising right up to the sides of the ship, pushing it to the dock. This ship has two decisive advantages: an enormous depth and no restrictions. This means that even the biggest of the giant ships can enter the port at any time of the day or night. The ship is brought to the terminal as close as possible. They have done it. Cape Camel is perfectly positioned and becomes the first ship to dock in Kenya's newest port, and exactly on schedule. On the docks, some of the biggest cranes, shunting trucks, one of the most advanced control systems at any container port, and some of the best operators in the business have to unload Cape Camel. The majority of this process is performed automatically. The only human involved sits in the crane itself. Self-driving transporters which assist the cranes. They receive the cargo or deliver the container for loading. Remote control cranes traveling on rails stack the containers. Shunting trucks. They will be supplying the cranes or move the container from point A to point B or by themselves. From the moment this ship docks, the operators will just have a few hours to unload it. Then they have to move the containers to the mainland, and there is no room for error.
And I invite and thank all shipping lines and cargo movers who are already using it, and those who are not using it, to make full use of this facility.
Today, only 2 ships have arrived here, but once the port becomes fully operational, Lamu Port will be battling powerful rivals for supremacy and the billion-dollar business along Africa's coastline. Rivals like South Africa's port of Durban and the port of Djibouti, which has shown tremendous output since it went online in 2017. For so long, Kenya has relied on the port of Mombasa to position herself as the entry point to East and Central Africa, but with Djibouti investing heavily in its port, Kenya has had to react and escalate the construction of Lamu Port, which had missed its initial target timelines. In order to trade goods, you need efficient ports. Today, Asia is home to the top 9 ports in the world. The most active ports are Shanghai and Singapore, with an annual throughput of more than 30 million containers. Rotterdam is the only non-Asian port in the top 10, but far behind with close to 12 million containers. Congestion and delays at the port of Mombasa had forced the Kenyan government to construct inland container depots in Nairobi and Naivasha. The only port in Kenya, the port of Mombasa, has served as a regional port and a principal gateway for many landlocked countries and a major source of revenue for the government. Competition from other regional ports such as Djibouti Port, Port Salalah of Oman, Jeddah Port of Saudi Arabia, the Port of Dar es Salaam and the Port of Durban of South Africa has put the Port of Mombasa under pressure to expand to deal with increased traffic, and if not addressed, could relegate the Port of Mombasa to become a feeder port. The Port of Mombasa has been undergoing an expansion program in an attempt to remain competitive in the region. But studies indicate that Mombasa Port is nearing its saturation point, and construction of another port was justifiable for the country. Kenya's worry in the transshipment industry was not just limited to how much freight the port could handle. But also the size of vessels that could dock at the harbor. Ships are continually becoming bigger and bigger, with ship owners seeking to make more money from shipping of containers. And that requires deeper ports to dock. To remain competitive, Kenya sought to fast-track a dream that had failed to become a reality through generations. The Lamu Port.
I remember some doubting Thomases who questioned its viability and wondered if it would ever be utilized, wondering whether it would ever be built. They can stop wondering. We are here. And those who doubt its viability, just as they doubted our ability to build it, will also be put to shame.
The new launched berth was constructed at Manda Bay, just beyond the mouth of the bay. The water here is over 12 meters deep. But that wasn't enough for bigger ships Kenya seeks to attract. As big as the Codron Mask, over 40 meters wide, over 300 meters long, longer than the tallest building in Kenya, Britam Tower, and needing deeper water than what Mombasa Port could offer. We are talking about 9,000, 10,000, 13,000 TEU container ships, so Kenya needed a port at least 15 meters deep. Today's mega ships like the Codron Mask are in the class by themselves, a class called Post-Panamax, because they are too wide to fit into the Panama Canal. And that was up to the team of engineers and workers from China Communications Construction Company to provide that depth through dredging. Dredging can be defined as excavation of underwater soil or rock mass. A hydraulic dredging system was used during the construction of the Lamu port. It involved sucking of the mixture of coral rocks and water from the bottom of the Indian Ocean. economics with shippers tells them to get larger, tells them to get deeper draft. Draft is the depth of the ship below the water surface. Like for many modern harbors, engineers at the Lamu port are in a scramble to get the harb's waterways deep enough for post-Panamax container ships. The port will have 5 channels, with the main channel 18 meters deep. Bulk container ships will be docking here. We're talking about ships of 100,000 deadwood tons, or simply DWT vessels. Deadwood tons is a measure of a vessel's weight carrying capacity, not including the empty weight of the ship. The harbour is being constructed to be able of berthing 30,000 DWT vessels to 100,000 DWT vessels, even up to maximum of 18,000 TEU container vessels. The cutter suction dredger with a capacity of 3,500 cubic meters per hour is adopted for the harbour basin and turning circle dredging. The rotating cutter heads pulverizes the underwater rock mass into fragments. The terminal land area is reclaimed by the suitable dredged material. Temporary construction yard is established on the east side of the south container terminal after the land area is reclaimed. Rock material is then transported by 30 to 50 cubic meter hopper and placed over excavated footprint. The riprap work is carried out layer by layer, and compaction work is carried out by using 5-ton ramming boat. Precasting work of caisson is executed layer by layer. The bottom shuttering consists of structural steel, timber deck, and fiberboard. Reinforcement bars are fabricated over the bottom shuttering. Then there is the construction of a causeway to link the mainland with the port terminal. It will be crucial for getting cargo into and out of the port.
By July, berth number 2 will be ready, and by October of this year, the last berth, which is berth number 3, shall also be operational.
And that's going to substantial investment. And we have financed from our own resource, from GOK resource, not from any donor. The idea is to be a catalyst and encourage the private sector to invest in the construction of additional berths. Because as it is, this port is sufficient. But any individual, any companies, any entities within and also outside the country are encouraged to come and develop other berths on a public-private arrangements.
The development of the port was divided into the following phases: short, fast 3-berth, access roads, offices, yards, warehouses, and workshops. It was to be done between 2011 and 2015. But because of disruptions, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the construction was delayed, and the first berth was only launched in May 2021. And that means the other 2 phases that envisaged the remaining longer berth, railway line, shunting yards, and railway cargo stations will not be done according to the initial schedule. The 3-berth cost 48 billion Kenyan shillings since construction commenced in 2016 and measure 1.2 kilometers long and 18 meters wide. The first 3-berth will each have a capacity to dock 2 ships measuring 220 meters in length simultaneously. Total cargo capacity expected to reach 23.9 million tons by 2030.
Mji huu wa Lamu utahitaji mambo mengi. Utahitaji nyumba za wawekezaji, kwa sababu mtakuwa na wengi ambao watakuwa wanakuja kutoa mizigo yao hapa, watakuwa wanataka kutafuta pahali ya kulala, pahali ya kukunywa chai. Hiyo ni biashara kwa vijana wa area hii. Hiyo ni biashara kwa wakulima wa area hii. Mtahitaji maofisi. Hawa wote ambao mnaona hapa wakija watahitaji maofisi. Hiyo ni kazi kwa vijana wetu. Shipping companies zile zitakuwa hapa.
The project will have special economic zones ideal for an industrial hub, freight logistic hub, and information communication and technology parks.